Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional league, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
This is GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Emmet Wyman. We're live, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other streaming services, Spreaker Network, Twitter, or personal link for the VIP members. Y'all know who you are, man. Shout out to everybody listening, though, for real. And especially shout out to them VIPs. You know who the VIPs are. And that's an exclusive club, getting that info early, getting my waiver wire pickups early, getting these players early so they can be ahead of their competition. You want to join the VIP club, it's free, guys. Just like the Chris Brown song. I forgot the exact words, but I think it was "Look at Me." Yeah, it was "Look at Me Now" when he said talking about you can't even get in the club or something like that. I was gonna quote it, but literally the words slipped out of my head. But I mean, if you can get in the club, guys, all right, we're not charging. You don't got to bring your own bottle. You can get in the club for free. If you want to get in the VIP club, message me on either the social media, GSMC _ fantasy football, GSMC _ FF football, I should say, because that's the Twitter handle. Or message me personally, which is probably your best bet, Emmet _ Wyman 22 on Twitter. Twitter is probably the best way to get a hold of everybody, because that's where everybody's talking ball. Everybody's retweeting this. You got so many injury news flying around Twitter, which is actually good because it keeps its instantaneous updates. And you compare that to other forms of media like what I'm doing right now with the podcast. This is not instantaneous. I mean, I wish it was, but it's just not the truth. So Twitter's just the best for that, guys. So make sure you're followed to those two pages, GSMC _ football, and then Emmet _ Wyman 22. I don't really post much, but if you ever have a question, I got you guys. And if you want to get in my VIP club that I literally just made up. But anyway, guys, let's get into it. We got this show is going to be a good show today. We're going to do Turkey Day preview in the final segment because waivers is freaking dead. There's no point in me doing a 5-minute waiver segment, so we'll talk about like 3-4 names that you could pick up, and then I'll talk about the games tomorrow on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day. Let's recap the games yesterday, and then we'll get into the power rankings and studs and duds and whatnot. But guys, if there is ever any doubt, any doubt in my podcast last week about Carson Wentz, and I thought last week was the perfect time to do an opening segment just dedicated to how bad he is as a quarterback and how bad the Eagles are as a team. I thought last week was the perfect week. I mean, you lose to the Giants. The Giants don't beat nobody aside from Washington. All right, and Giants fans, I'm going to still poke at you, all right? Just because you got your win don't mean you're up and you're better than this and you're going to win the division. Let's slow down a little bit and let's pump the brakes. But Giants are going to be pumping their chest. They got Cincinnati this weekend. They should win that. If they lose that, then you're right back to square one. And I'll take back everything I said. You'll go right back to the bottom 5. But I don't think that's going to happen. It's Ryan Finley. But we got some big games coming up, but let's talk about we'll briefly talk about the Eagles because, look, I mean, I'm not going to yell and rant and rave like I did last podcast because it's over. It's over. I mean, any argument for Carson Wentz being a good player, quarterback, whatever, is completely dead. It's dead as the freaking mice that are probably sitting outside or sitting in your wall creaks. I mean, seriously, it's dead. It's dead. Eagles fans are done. Okay? Eagles fans, who were really the only group of people defending Carson Wentz, they're done. All right? The only person that's really defending, two people that are defending Carson Wentz, are Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson. Nobody's defending him. Everybody, maybe, what's his name from the Fox show? Manny Aiko. He's over there. Last year he was talking about Carson Wentz. They were doing quarterback comparisons to cars. It was a funny episode last year. You could probably YouTube this if you want, but Manny, he called Carson Wentz a Ferrari. Now, if we were to compare Carson Wentz to a car now, I think a good comparison would be a Ferrari, but probably a Ferrari in 1962. That would, if you brought it out today and you tried to turn it on, it would go and it would burn out. That's the Ferrari that Carson Wentz is now. He's not that new Ferrari that you see driving down Route 80 with the top down, blowing that big, you know what? That's not it. Or I shouldn't say Route 80. I should say Rodeo. Where some real luxury cars are. I just said that because, I'm North Jersey, born and raised. But that's just the truth about Carson Wentz. I mean, he's a burnt-out car. He's a burnt-out car. I mean, he ain't no Ferrari. But I don't know where the Eagles go from here, man. I mean, we talked about, the possibility, and I talked about just off air about, are they going to bench Carson Wentz? And I honestly don't think they will. And the reason I don't think they will is simple. They're paying him $32 million a year. They're not going to admit, as a front office, they're not going to admit that they made a mistake with him by signing that contract. It's the same thing that Chicago was trying to do with Mitch. They just kept trying to force Mitch and force Mitch and force him. And eventually it just got to a point where it's like, you can't do it anymore. But it was easier to do it with Mitch because Mitch is making like $4 million a year. So even though you drafted all these, you had these investments in them, you traded up to get them, you didn't give him a second contract. And obviously he won't get a second contract, even though Nick Foles looks like a freaking statue. But Carson Wentz, not only did you trade up, not only did you get multiple first and second round picks, you gave him a second contract when he barely did crap. That's what's annoying. This dude didn't do nothing. He had 12 games or 13 games in 2017 where he looked like an MVP candidate, and he got, apparently that's like him. That's his career. Is everybody keeps talking about 2017. 2017 was 3 years ago. Tell me what he's doing in 2020. Nothing. Wasn't doing nothing last year either. 2019, 2018, did nothing. But Eagles fans just keep bringing back 2017. Have you realized 2017 is a fluke? It was a complete fluke. It was a lucky season. It was a great season for the Eagles. They won the Super Bowl in a great fashion over the Patriots. It's a great season. Okay? It was a great season. I'm not going to deny that. You won the Super Bowl. They won it. Okay? Congrats. But it's over. It's long over. Long over. You're still trying to basically replenish that Super Bowl core that you had in that 2017 season and just try to add pieces around it. That's the worst way to build your team. Because then you're banking on hope, basically. And hope don't get you nowhere. So, that's what the Eagles are doing. They're really trying to just, they honestly think that 2017 is going to happen again. And hey, if Howie Roseman, you want to think about that, and you really want to think like that, that's fine by me, because that means you ain't going nowhere. That means that the Giants are probably going to be a better team than you in a couple of years. I honestly believe that. If you're not going to get out of that Carson Wentz contract, you have an old roster to begin with. You have a 40-year-old left tackle. 40! He stinks. He gets beat off the edge every time on a speed rush. He's horrible. You brought back a 40-year-old left tackle. 40. The guy's the same age as Tom Brady, and you brought him back at left tackle. I mean, should I become a general manager? I mean, sir, there's literally some moves that I'm like, man, like, he really did that? I don't know. And people say, oh, who else are we going to have? Bring a freaking kid from Yoo-Hoo University who's 22 years old. At least he's young. You can give him time to develop, and he might have a ceiling. What the heck is Jason Peters going to do for you? But that just shows the Eagles thinking. They don't know. Let's move on. I can't even talk about them no more. Let's go to a couple other games that really kind of just shocked me. I guess we talk about the Cowboys now that we're on it. Getting that, we'll briefly talk about it because, look, I mean, it was a great win. Yeah, they played better. It's Minnesota, okay? And I've said this before. Even though Minnesota went on a 3-game win streak, it was about as fraudulent as you can get. They beat the Bears. The Bears are just they're a team going nowhere. They beat the Lions, who are, the Lions. Let's talk about the Lions. Oh, my God. Eagles, if there's one team worse than you, we found it. The Detroit Lions. This team got shut out 23-0 by a defense that hasn't allowed or hasn't forced more than 2 punts. Okay? 2 punts in the past 2 weeks going into that game. They only forced 1 punt in Atlanta, and they forced 1 punt with Tampa. 1 punt. Okay? That means only 1 time did they not score, unless it was a turnover, which I don't even think they turned the ball over. So that means on every drive, they only did not score 1 time. Detroit Lions didn't score all game. Nothing. Not a field goal. Shut out. Shut out. Completely. And here's the best part. The Panthers didn't even have Teddy Two Gloves. They threw out some kid from the XFL, P.J. Walker. Who the hell? I don't even know who he is, but the kid, he's out here looking like, what's his name? Donovan McNabb. It's ridiculous. But at least, that's a team that you could point to and you could just say they're dead. Yeah, they're dead, man. That team is dead. They're playing on Thanksgiving. We'll preview that game later, but my God, where does that team go from here? Matt Patricia, this might be a really good spot to grab the Lions, and that sounds crazy, but if Matt Patricia doesn't win on Thanksgiving, and even if, let's say they get embarrassed on Thanksgiving, he'll be sent home packing before they give out the turkey legs to whoever wins on the Texans. So we'll see where they go from there, but they're in a rough spot for sure. That team is just going nowhere fast. That was that's like a win that kind of seals your fate or a loss, I should say, that seals your fate as a head coach. But anyway, back to Minnesota. Minnesota got 3 wins. They beat the Lions, and then they beat Green Bay. And Green Bay, they surely beat because of Dalvin Cook. And Green Bay's defense, my God, they're horrible. So Minnesota, they did their thing on offense. Dalvin Cook, I think the Cowboys contained him really well. The receivers were really good, both Thielen and Jefferson. It was just a matter of can Cousins giving them the ball. And they were on a couple long balls, but towards the end of the game, I thought the Cowboys did a really good job containing both of them. Jefferson did drop a pass on that 3rd down that really hurt him, but it is what it is. Sometimes the ball's going to bounce your way for Dallas, and that's what happened. So, good win for Coach Mike and that crew. Speaking of it, though, and Coach Mike, how about that How about them sledgehammers, guys? How we like that? It's literally doing the Gallagher. You're literally doing the Gallagher, man. And if you guys don't know who Gallagher is, just YouTube, look up Gallagher and then type in Opie Radio. There's a good video on YouTube. And I know I'm talking about, that Opie, man. The Opie from Opie and Anthony. I'm just saying his name because there's a video on his page of Gallagher doing the water, smashing everything, and doing his entire stunt. And it's pretty funny. It's only like a minute long. But he did the same thing. Apparently got the boys fired up, and they did their thing. I mean, everybody looked good. Zeke looked good. Tony Pollard was, woo! I mean, Tony Pollard's a good player. He has a way to just change his direction on a dime. I mean, it's not even, when most guys change their direction, usually they get choppy feet and they stay in one place. And you see that like a lot, especially with the smaller backs, they get and they just don't go anywhere. But Tony Pollard, he has a way of just weaving in and out of holes that it's fast and elusive, yet he's not losing speed when he changes direction, and that's really special. And I think they got to get him involved somehow, even more. I mean, he could be a starter. He could easily be a starter. He's that good. Is he a viable fantasy player now? It's a good question. I'm not sure, but I think if he were to ever be a starter, oh my God, that'd be a starting running back easily. So, good win for the boys. I guess we'll talk about the Green Bay Packers now, who are just, I mean, literally, they blew the game. I mean, that team towards the end was ridiculous. But, I mean, Green Bay, when are you going to change your defense? I mean, this defense for the Packers has just been bad, and it's never, they keep trying to hype it up. They bring in some free agents. I know they like Jair Alexander, the corner, who's, developing into a nice player. But aside from that, I mean, they've really, just their system overall has just been pretty bad. And it was bad when McCarthy was there, too, which is kind of concerning. And now they have Mike Pettin as their DC, who I don't even know if LaFleur hired. He might just be a leftover from McCarthy's staff. So the fact that LaFleur doesn't even care to change his DC, that should kind of say something for him as a head coach. But I don't know where they're really going to be held back by their defense, and that's just the truth about it. I mean, you let Phillip Rivers come back on you like that, I mean, come on. That is something you can't allow, especially with the way they were able to move the football in the game. And I know there were some quirky calls in the end, and, Robert Funyon was wide open and whatnot. But come on, you can't allow Phillip Rivers to come back on you. The guy, someone said this to me the other day. I mean, he literally throws the ball like it's a 100-pound. I mean, I say a boulder, but I mean, it literally looks like a 100-pound dumbbell in his arm. I mean, he can't even arc it past his shoulder, and you let that guy beat you. And then the ground game was just killer, too. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, welcome back, baby. Welcome back. He's back with 22 carries, toting that rock, man, moving it through. Nyheim Hines got some action. I mean, Colts offense had a field day. Michael Pittman looked really good, too. And we might talk about him later as a potential waiver pickup. But Packers, I mean, they're not going to go anywhere until their defense is better. And I think that's it for all the games that initially come to mind. I'm going to take a break, and we're going to go into power rankings, and there will probably be some more games that come to mind that we'll recap along the way. We'll try to keep the power rankings a little bit short because we're going to get into a long segment, I should say, with the studs and duds, and then we're going to finish off with the Turkey Day preview. So stay tuned, guys. We got a lot coming.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, we're back. GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. If you guys noticed in the first 3 seconds, my tone kind of changed. And the reason it did is we have some really sad news that I got to break. Just got a text from someone that says Marcus Paul, the Cowboys' strength and conditioning coach, has officially passed away this evening at age 54. This is just tragic, man. It's really sad. This is a North Jersey guy, so it kind of, I didn't know him at all personally, but you always poll, I should say, for people born and raised in your area, man. And this guy was, a really good guy. I mean, he was a standout player at Syracuse. Was a safety. Ended up going into the NFL. Played with the Chicago Bears. I think he was part of the 1985 Bears, with one of the nastiest defenses of all time. Was I think a backup safety there, and then ended up moving on into strength and conditioning. Worked for Belichick. Won 3 Super Bowls there. Moved on to the Giants with Tom Coughlin. Won a couple more Super Bowls with him, and was doing a good job with the Cowboys, man. And I can't really evaluate his job, right? But I can just tell you like this: the players, not just Cowboys players have the utmost respect for him. I mean, hearing the news yesterday on Tuesday that he was hospitalized, I think a lot of reports initially, were kind of forced and rushed out to say, oh, he passed away and this, that, and that, and the other, and that was kind of messed up. And I kind of felt bad, because I tried to reach out to some members in the family via social media and just let them know, I'm sorry for your loss, and the fact that he was technically still alive. That just, it's I feel bad myself, and I'm not the one who even reported it, just saying, sorry for your loss when he's not even, dead. But the fact that those media outlets tried to rush out news like that, that's kind of sick, man. It's something that needs to stop, because this is stuff that's been happening with other people, not just him. And it just needs to stop, period, because this is somebody's life, and beyond the fact that he was an NFL player, a standout in Syracuse, or a strength and conditioning coach, he's a father, man. He's a father, and he's got kids, and he's got a wife, and he's got to provide for those people. So the fact that those kids, and his kids, I should say, and his wife don't have a source of income, man, that's a tragedy. I mean, that's really a tragedy, and I just really hope that all is good with them, man, because this is going to have a pretty big mental effect on the team. Just, losing a guy that's, you see every day. I mean, I think that's the best way to compare it for yourself. If you were to put it in your shoes, I mean, if somebody in your life that you saw every day passed away, you would be miserable. And, while my life might continue like nothing happened, doesn't mean we can't be sympathetic. So if you guys can, man, reach out to the family on social media. You can just type, it's going around the poor girl's page. She's going around. They're probably going to have a donation page for his funeral. So if you guys want, man, I'll try to, what I'll do, so you guys don't have to go looking for it. Go to my social media page, Emmet_Wyman22. And if you do want to donate or help him out, please let me know, and I'll get you in touch with how to do that. But just wanted to get that out the way. I mean, it's just tragic, man. It's really tragic to see, a good soul die like that. And for the Cowboys, they got a game Thursday, and this happened yesterday and today. I mean, those players got to be just crying their eyes out. I can't even imagine. Anyway, I guess we'll try to get back on better notes, and I'll try to start ranting and raving about these teams, even though it's hard, man. It breaks my heart, man. It really breaks my heart to see, not only, to see the media kind of, force out a death note, combined with the fact that he is really dead. I mean, it pisses me off, and it angers me and upsets me a lot. But the only thing you could do, I guess, is just be positive about it. Send your hopes and prayers, and make a donation to the page. Nothing's officially. I'm just assuming they're going to make a page. I'm just assuming. Okay. But if you actually do, if you're serious and you want to help out, let me know. Emmet_Wyman22 on Twitter. I'll get you in touch with how to help out, or I'll give you a link or whatever. But we'll figure something out, okay? So anyway, let's get into some top 5, bottom 5 power rankings. We'll start off, I guess, with the top 5. Number 5, I'm going to go Buffalo. Buffalo's just been, aside from that game against the Cardinals, they've been rolling this year. They're 7-3, but they should be 8-2. Their offense is good. Josh Allen's played a lot better. It's something that's is literally as I'm guys. Okay. I'm literally trying to. I can't get this off my mind. I really can't. And I'm not trying to. I swear to God, I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm not trying to be a guy that's trying to hype anything up. But to see something like this happen, and I just saw. I kind of said that because I saw a note on social media from the family. I just feel so bad for them, man. All right, I'm back, but I guess I just sent down a note to the family, so that was kind of therapeutic for me, kind of to, exert my thoughts. But I had to take a break, man, because I don't want you guys to hear me moping around on the air. But all right, let's get back at it though. Bottom 5. So we were talking about Buffalo, and Buffalo, they have a good core, they have a good makeup. There's no doubt about it. If there's a team aside from the Chiefs and the Steelers that really has a shot at the Super Bowl, it's them. And I think it's just due to their makeup. The culture they have in place with Sean McDermott is a tough. It's tough. It's hardworking. It's no nonsense. It's something that you didn't see from those old Buffalo teams with Doug Whaley as general manager and Rex Ryan and all the carousel of coaches that they had, like Chan Gailey, and my God, they went through like 20 head coaches before they finally found one with McDermott. But none of those teams were anything tough to face. Nobody was scared of them. This team gives you problems, and it really comes down to their quarterback. If Josh Allen is going to play at an MVP level, this team is extremely hard to beat. But if Josh Allen's going to give you the usual Josh Allen, they're beatable, but they're still not a team you could roll over. So a lot of respect for what Buffalo's doing this year. Number 4, this might surprise you guys, but I'm going to go with the Rams. The Rams. Believe it or not. After seeing that game Monday night, I think Tampa's out of the top 5 this week. The Rams absolutely schooled them with the coaching clinic. Absolutely schooled them. Sean McVay, he's making a Hall of Fame pitch for himself, man. And he's only 3 years in. There's a reason they call him Wonder Boy. My God. It's literally every throw Jared Goff is making. And I was talking with Kayvon Izami about this during the game. He told me, he's like, dude, we could be the quarterback for the Rams. And I'm thinking, it's like, dude, we really can. There's not a freaking throw that Jared Goff made that not one of us, the listener watching this, could have made. Everything was a play-action boot, a mesh, which, for you guys that don't know mesh is, if you play Madden, you know what it is, but it's basically the receivers intertwine on a crossing route, and when you're in man coverage, that's killer. Kills any man coverage. That's how you beat them. In a zone, in a complex zone that will pick it up, that probably won't work, but in just straight up man-to-man coverage, which is what Tampa was playing for some part of the game, that'll rock you. And then play-action boots are, my God, that's just a killer for anything. And John McVay is just running the crap out of those two plays over and over and over again. Jared Goff is making the easiest throws in the world. He barely got hit. The line wasn't even supposed to be that good coming into this game, considering Andrew Whitworth was down. Ndamukong Suh and Pierre-Paul were, making some plays, but it wasn't enough. But, just the coaching. I think the coaching of the Rams is so it's just not even talked about. And I know I think on just the whole team. It's not just the whole, Sean McVay's a genius. It's everything. They are really well coached. And Sean McVay, man. I don't know what the heck he's dialing up. You see there's a reason why everybody's trying to hire his proteges and whatnot, but I'm telling you, he's different. Zach Taylor is nowhere near freaking close to him. That's a fact. But shout out to the Rams. Really good win against Tampa on prime time. Number 3, New Orleans. New Orleans 8-2. They're rock solid. They made Atlanta look like Atlanta looked. They really made Atlanta look like the team that they were. A crummy ass soft team. Matty Ice. I mean, Kayvon, I know you love Matty Ice, but that was not a good game for Matty Ice. And I'm not going to be the one. I'm going to say I'm going to wait till the end of the season to really give you a full evaluation, because I'm not going to be the guy that's just after one game saying, oh, Matty Ice has got to go and he's got to get released and they got to pick a new quarterback. They do have to pick a new quarterback just due to the fact that Matty Ice is getting old. But I'm not going to say just because he looked crappy this game doesn't mean that he's got to go. But I'm telling you what. Him, Todd Gurley, I mean, they did absolutely nothing. And that's the reason why he only scored 9 points, combined with the fact that Julio Jones is the freaking offense, okay? That's something we know about the Atlanta Falcons. When Julio Jones ain't in the game, the Falcons are horrible. They're horrible. That's a fact that we know. If there's one thing we could take away from the Falcons this season, I mean, I've never seen a whole team just completely fall apart when when a receiver leaves the game. The whole team. Okay? The defense wasn't bad, actually. I mean, they're a lot better than where they were earlier in the season. That's something that doesn't really go noticed, too. But, I mean, we'll give Raheem Morris a lot of credit for, patching up that secondary. He's got Terrell, the rookie, playing well. So, I think, they're doing okay defensively. But the team, I'm telling you, this team falls apart when Julio Jones is not in the game. And, I guess that goes to show how special of a player Julio Jones is. But at the same time, Matty Ice, Dirk Cutter, where are you guys going to pick up the slack? I mean, it was a total shit show, honestly. And Todd Gurley is slow. I mean, get his ass out of there. Why the heck are they still running him? He's slow. The guy runs 2 miles an hour. Any running back's better than that. You could sign... If the Jacksonville Jaguars can go out and sign James Robinson, who wasn't even picked in the draft, and the guy he looks like Maurice Jones-Drew, and you sign Todd Gurley? Come on. He's slow. Get him out. But New Orleans Saints, I mean, listen, this is a solid team. Obviously, the question going forward is what's Taysom Hill, whatever his name is. I still butcher his name. Taysom. I don't give a crap. I mean, the guy, he can't throw the football, but hey, at least he could give you some running options. I mean, most of his passes were, again, what we predicted. Slants to Michael Thomas, which is like 50% of the playbook, and then the other 50% is basically a dunk off to Kamara. And when you have Kamara, it's not a bad play call because he makes like 5 guys miss every time he gets the ball in his hand. Great to have a guy like that. But fantasy-wise, I think you might want to have to consider Taysom Hill going forward. They got the Broncos next week, so obviously the Saints will go to 9-2. So they're looking like a real prime position to actually be the number 1 seed in the NFC, and that's pretty crazy with the fact that it's Taysom Hill leading them to that number 1 seed. But Sean Payton did a really good game plan. I mean, it was what you wanted to do. You wanted to get the ball in Kamara's hands. You wanted to get the ball in Thomas's hands. You wanted to run Taysom Hill, and he did a lot of that. And that's why I want him on my fantasy team if I'm looking for a backup quarterback. Because I'm telling you what, guys, if this quarterback's going to get 10 carries, 15 carries a game, I mean, 15 carries might be excessive, but if you're going to get 10 carries a game as a quarterback in a high-octane offense, which the New Orleans Saints have always been, even if Drew Brees isn't there, it's Sean Payton, guys. I mean, the guy's a wizard. Anytime he's going to have a quarterback or whatever, you probably want to pick that guy up because he'll have some numbers. The problem with Brees doesn't give you anything in the long ball, and he doesn't give you anything with his legs. Taysom Hill, his long ball is a little inaccurate, to say the least, but at least he can run with his legs, and he's going to get goal line touches with his legs or red zone touches, whatever. So rushing touchdowns are always going to be more valuable, which is why I really like Taysom Hill this week as just a guy you can get off the street, and due to the fact that people are going to dump him because they finally took off that stupid tight end cheese to where he's a tight end. That never made sense. So finally they got rid of that, but still, that doesn't mean you should drop him. He's a good backup quarterback option. To finish off the top 5, I mean, Chiefs are number 2, obvious. I mean, the Chiefs were rolled. They rolled. They were rolling on offense, but the Raiders gave them a lot of problems. And the Raiders have a shot of making it into the top 5 later down the season. But Give a shout out to the Raiders because they really played hard on offense. I mean, their defense is just bad, and that's the reason they lost. I mean, there was no doubt the Chiefs were going to win that game, but at least give the credit to the Raiders for fighting. And then Pittsburgh at 10-0, they whooped Jacksonville. I mean, come on, that wasn't even a contest. So no surprises there. Now let's go to the bottom 5. 27, I'm going to go with the Redskins. And the reason is, if Joe Burrow doesn't fall down and break his knee, I mean, the Redskins were going to lose that game. I mean, let's be real, guys. Like, the Washington football team was going to lose that game if Joe Burrow didn't go down. They were moving the football a lot more effectively than they were. And that was with the Bengals team that had a terrible offensive line. They should never, ever put Joe Burrow out with the line like that versus Chase Young and versus, John Allen and all those guys inside. They should have never put him out with a line like that. So the fact that they let them out there with something like that, it's just ridiculous. And I don't know why they had freaking what's his name? I forget the dude's name at right tackle. But it's just like, the point is, why are the Bengals? You cannot ever play your franchise quarterback with a line like that. And the reason, or the example is Andrew Luck. Okay, I mean, I don't know why every team in the world doesn't. Why don't they just seriously take a lesson from? I'm looking at something, which is why I'm stuttering. But take a look at what Andrew Luck's career is. Great quarterback, number 1 overall pick, and he literally got ruined because of his injuries due to the fact that his previous general manager didn't even bother to spend a first or second round pick on an offensive lineman. Think about that. I mean, that's the reason his career ended early. The fact that they had him was, just crazy. But, the Bengals are literally going to fall down the same trap if they don't get a line for Joe Burrow. They better get something in there immediately. But Washington, look, you're not going anywhere with Alex Smith, and that's just the truth to it. I respect Alex Smith for playing the game with his knee, but he's a one-legged quarterback. I don't know how else to put it. And that defense, it might be fierce at times, but it's not consistent enough. And especially with the amount of time that they're going to be on the field, it's just not worth it. 29, I'm going to go Atlanta Falcons. They're back in the bottom 5. And Atlanta Falcons, look, they're 3-7. I just saw a quote earlier that said John Gruden called them the best 3-7 team. And to be honest with you, it's not really a lie. The Falcons have some talent offensively. They were steamrolling teams on defense coming into this game, but it just didn't happen versus New Orleans. They looked like crap. They just absolutely got schooled. So they're back where they belong in the bottom 5. 30, the Bengals. The Bengals season is lost after Joe Burrow went down. That was really their only hope in the season to begin with, but the fact that he's down, you can just mail in and get the offensive tackle from Oregon. 31, Jacksonville. Jacksonville hasn't won since the opener. Nine straight losses for Jacksonville, and then 10 straight losses for the New York Jets. So that's your top 5, bottom 5, guys. Let's get into a break, and we'll get into studs and duds next segment and recap fantasy players who did well and who didn't.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Let's get into some studs and duds for Week 11 in the NFL. Players that did well and exceeded expectations, and players that didn't live up to expectations at each position. So, of course, we'll start off with the quarterbacks. Studs, I think clear-cut. Deshaun Watson was a stud. He had a great game. It was the Patriots who, look, I mean, the Patriots, you know, the name is more intimidating than what they actually are on defense. Everybody see Patriot defense, you think Belichick, you think, man, he's always going to have those guys intact. And the truth is, the Patriots are slow on defense. We said this a while ago. We said this after the 49ers game when they got smacked. I mean, they're very slow on defense. They don't have that same team speed like they had before. Their corners are good, but, I mean, up front, they just aren't that good. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. And you look at the drafts that they've had, you know, it shows that, you know, they haven't really hit on a lot of players. So Belichick's just doing whatever he can, mustering it up. But Watson, I mean, when you play a good quarterback like him, he's going to expose that. And he had a really good day. He laid it all. I mean, he always lays it all out, but he laid it out on some fourth down throws. That throw to Cobb in the back of the end zone was really nice. I mean, Deshaun Watson's an absolute stud. It's just too bad he's with the Texans. Justin Herbert, I mean, oh my God, that guy is. I mean, Justin Herbert is really good. He is really good. I'm not afraid to say that he's probably the best quarterback from this draft class. I know that's premature to say. He was my favorite going into the draft before Burrow and Tua. I mean, I loved Herbert. I mean, Herbert was someone who I thought could come out in 2019 and he would have been a top 10 pick and would have done the same thing, you know, come right in and start. But I mean, you see, while the record might not indicate it, you see some really, really nice throws from Herbert that, you know, rookie quarterbacks are not supposed to make. And the fact that he's doing this, you know, with blitzes in his face shows that, you know, man, this is really a veteran-like quarterback who's extremely poised in the pocket. And he stands really tall, too. But his arm is ridiculous. That laser, he threw a laser in the back of the end zone to Keenan Allen. The thing came off his hand at like 105 miles an hour, and then he threw a second one to Hunter Henry. I mean, he just, there's something special about this kid, man. I really hope they get him a head coach that just knows how to win freaking games. The fact that the Jets were coming back on the Chargers kind of shows how lame the Chargers are as a team, regardless of how good Herbert's doing. But, I mean, the future's bright with this dude. I'm telling you. You don't bench him. If for fantasy, you don't bench him. Straight up. Tyson Hill, he had a great game as well. And I'm not afraid. I mean, guys, I'm not the person that's all geeked over Tyson Hill. I'm sure if you listened to this podcast before, I really wasn't a fan of Tyson Hill. But the truth is, for fantasy, if you're going to run the ball as much as he's going to run it, he's definitely worth it. And the fact that he's probably going to be available in a lot of leagues just due to the fact that people are dumping him because they can't use him at tight end anymore. I think he's definitely has some value as a player you can just scoop up. Third most in scoring, 24 points. He got 10 carries, 50 yards, 2 touchdowns. There's value to them, guys. Pick them up if you need a backup. Jared Goff, I guess we have to consider him on the stud, even though he didn't make a throw that... Jared Goff never makes throws that the average human, let alone the average quarterback, could make. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's really all I can think of. Let's go to the duds. Matty Ice is the biggest dud of the week. Matty Ice played horrible. I mean, I said this in the last segment, but I mean, my God. I mean, that was one of the worst games I've ever seen from Matty Ice in a while. He's got a... When you watch that back, I mean, they were really blitzing the heck out of him, so sometimes, you know, you have to cut him some slack knowing that he can't get the ball out if, you know, 8 guys are coming at his face, but... I'm telling you, when he looks so lost when Julio's not on the field. It's not even funny. Baker Mayfield's a dud. But, I mean, Baker Mayfield didn't really have to do much. He made a couple throws, but his running backs always carry him. And all he's got to do is just not turn the ball over, honestly. Tua's a big dud. That's kind of surprising. Thinking about the Miami game now, that's probably the biggest shocker of the week. I mean, Miami was rolling, and I mean rolling, going into that game versus Denver. Denver was coming off an embarrassing loss. And what do you know? Denver just got absolutely shellacked versus the Raiders, but they come out and they shut down the Dolphins. They had to force Tua to the bench. He was playing that bad. They put in Fitzy, and Fitzy almost beat him, funny enough. But that's not a good game for Tua, not a good game to add to his resume. And my last dud, he's a dud every week because he sucks. Carson Wentz, he's the dud of the year. Not the dud of the week, dud of the year because he's that bad. I mean, I'm serious, guys. He is the dud of the year. There's not a player doing as bad as Carson Wentz, in my opinion. I'm being serious. Let's go to running backs now. Studs at running backs, I think the obvious, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry. Every week, these guys are on the top of the list. I mean, they do it week in, week out. It's not much to explain there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I mean, just an absolute beast versus the Raiders. I mean, didn't really get involved much in the receiving game, but they were pounding the Raiders inside. 2 touchdowns for Clyde Edwards. I mean, a lot of owners for Clyde are going to hope they get that red zone carries going forward. We'll see. I saw they got Le'Veon on one of those, and he got a touchdown, which is funny. Melvin Gordon had a good week. That's kind of surprised me. I didn't expect that, but hey, they gave him the ball 20 times. He did his thing, and he got 2 touchdowns. So you got to give him credit, man. Good week for Melvin Gordon. Zeke Elliott, he's back. Zeke's back. He's on a stud list. Touchdown for Zeke. He looked like his old self. The offensive line looked a lot better for the Cowboys, so we'll see where it's going to go from here. But, I mean, Zeke's an absolute workhorse. No doubt about it. Antonio Gibson, stud. Just a great week for Gibson. He should have had 100 yards, but they tackled him a couple times for a loss, so he had like 95. But he got a touchdown. But every week, Antonio Gibson, I mean, he is, I think this is 5 touchdowns in the past 4 games. Then you combine that with the fact what he's doing in the receiving. I mean, this guy is a stud, man. I love me some Antonio Gibson. J.K. Dobbins, he's back. J.K. Dobbins. Now, it is unfortunate. I did hear that he will be placed on the COVID list, which sucks. I mean, this is like the worst time for him, especially after having his best career game versus who did the Ravens play? I completely forgot. Oh, they played. Who the heck did they play? Oh, they played the Titans. How could I forget about that? And how could we forget about? I barely saw it, but I saw the John Harbaugh, Mike Gray. I mean, all I know is that there's no way they shook hands after the game. No way. No way. So that was kind of funny that they were, talking about it like they were best buddies and what. I mean, come on, guys. You know damn well he didn't shake no hands, which is pretty funny. But J.K. Dobbins, 15 carries, 70 yards, and a touchdown. This guy's a freaking workhorse. Give him the ball every time. What are they doing? Come on, Ravens. I think that's it for studs. I mean, we can go on. Mike Davis would probably add him to the studs list. I mean, he got a touchdown, but he should have had some more yards too. But they were clouding the box. They knew he was going to get the rock. But it is what it is. They were all studs. Now let's go to the duds. Miles Sanders, dud. Didn't do anything. Now, I was kind of worried about Miles Sanders because, while he is a good player, that offense is trending down, down, down. They're never going to fix it, especially if Carson Wentz is quarterback. So I honestly wanted to stay away from Miles Sanders, and I'm glad I did. Let's see. Todd Gurley, man. Todd Gurley is a freaking dud. I mean, I don't know what the heck I'm telling you, I said this last segment, I don't know what the Falcons are doing. They ought to just sit him down for Bryce Hill because Todd Gurley's just slow as crap. I mean, he was a guy that I would have traded away a while ago if I had him, especially when he was getting those good-ass numbers because you knew that wasn't going to continue. And, while it might be one bad game, I'm not sold on Todd Gurley. He's not a good running back at all. Used to be, but he's too dang slow. Can't really think of any other just flat-out duds this week. I guess we can consider Ronald Jones a dud, but Ronald Jones hasn't really done much the past 2 weeks. I think that's it. Nyheim Hines didn't do much either. Jonathan Taylor got a lot of the work, which is something I like to hear as a Jonathan Taylor owner, but it's all it's all about the committee and the rotation for Frank Reich. It's so freaking annoying, but hopefully he understands. I don't know if he ever will, but hopefully he understands that that Jonathan Taylor is a really, really good player. Let's go to receivers. Studs at receivers. Adam Thielen had a great week at receiver. I just got open, scored a touchdown. I mean, what else do you want from Adam Thielen? Honestly, I think all the Adam Thielen owners are extremely happy. He is hurt, though, so we'll see where he is going forward. Darius, what is it? Damir Bird from the Patriots. I never heard of this guy, but that happens with the Patriots almost every other week. They have one guy gets 15, 20, 25 points. You don't know who he is. Damir Bird, he's still sitting on waivers in my league. I don't plan on picking him up, but could be a sleeper. Just as I yawn. Robert Woods, great game on Monday night. Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp were both outstanding. I just don't know how they get so wide ass open. It makes no sense to me, but heck, they got the ball. They got extreme targets. Jared Goff was hitting both consistently, so shouts out to both of them. Keenan Allen, outstanding week for him. Got that laser from Herbert. I mean, Keenan Allen, guys, we said he was probably going to be your number one trade target a few weeks ago just due to his easy schedule. It's continuing for Keenan Allen. He's on a great roll. Devontae Adams, usual week for him. Tyreek Hill, stud week for him. DJ Moore, pretty solid week for him. DJ Moore has been picking it up recently. I don't know where to evaluate him, but there's a good shot he's going to get a lot of targets going forward with Teddy Two Gloves coming back. Jefferson caught a long ball, so he had a good week. A.J. Brown, good week. Devontae Parker, good week. Michael Pittman, good week. Chase Claypool, good week. Deontay Johnson, good week. A lot of receivers did really well. Kind of hard to find a guy that just didn't do well. I guess we'll go. Even Nelson Aguilar. Nelson Aguilar was a stud last week. Now, I mean, where do you think I'm going to go from here when I say Nelson Aguilar? The Eagles. The Eagles have no receivers whatsoever. And you let this guy walk right out the door, and he's balling out. I mean, the guy was dropping babies like Aguilar when he was in Philly, but, I mean, he's balling out of control with the Raiders. So that really kind of, if you're Howie Roseman, you got to be sitting there like, what the heck, man? Like, we couldn't get this guy to be worth a damn with us, and now he's out here looking like freaking Jerry Rice. Or, Jerry Rice is extreme, but seriously, like, we couldn't get this guy to have numbers anywhere close to what he's doing with the Raiders. He's averaging 19 yards a catch. 19 yards a catch. So it's not like he couldn't play. I mean, that's a big shot at Doug Peterson and Howie Roseman. Shame on them. Shame on the Eagles. The Eagles are just, I mean, we all knew, I knew at least that the Eagles were a bad team. And I said this before. When the Eagles were 5-7 last year, okay, the Eagles lost to teams like the Dolphins last year. Okay, the Dolphins are a different team this year than they were last year. Last year, they were a horrible team. Horrible team. They had no skill on that team whatsoever. The Lions were like 3-13 last year. They lost to them. They were losing to garbage-ass teams. Then they went on a 4-game win streak that consisted of beating the Giants twice, the Redskins once, the Redskins were an absolute shit show, and the Cowboys in Week 16. All those teams fired the coach, so they weren't good teams. All right? Yet the Eagles said, oh, wow, that was such an impressive comeback. What a miracle. Only these group of guys could do it. And they got smoked in the playoffs. But the Eagles fans would say, oh, Carson Wentz got hurt. I mean, shit, Josh McCown might even be better than him at this point. At least he won't turn the ball over. So, and they still think they're good. So, hey, let it happen. All right, anyway, let's go on. Duds of the week. DeAndre Hopkins was a dud. We talked about that last show, how he really wasn't getting a lot of targets due to Kyler Murray's injury. We'll see where he continues going forward. Julio Jones was a dud, but Julio Jones got hurt, and Julio Jones is a freaking headache. I mean, such a good player. Hall of Fame player. No doubt about it. Hall of Fame player. But this guy, he gets hurt a little injury, and he's out for the game. He's running around the sideline. He's trying to stretch out his hammy. That hammy's been aggravating him all year. So he's running around the sideline trying to stretch it out. They say he's going to come back. Clearly, he's just sitting there with his helmet off watching the game like a spectator. And then he only comes back in the game for one play. This is what really aggravates me. He comes back in the game for one play. 4th and 15. Of course, where does Matty Ice throw the ball? Julio Jones, 19-yard game. As soon as that play is over, he runs right back to the sideline. Never sees him again. I mean, that is ridiculous, man. And he does it because he has the power over these, they're really dead man coaches. I mean, Raheem Morris, as much as he wants the job, he's not going to get the job. I mean, we all know that. So, with the season like that going for the Falcons, these guys are doing whatever they want. I mean, it's just so annoying. I mean, as a fantasy owner, you see great plays, but you just don't see it consistently, and then you factor in his injuries. I mean, honestly, just a big headache, but great player nonetheless. DJ Chark was an absolute dud. DJ Chark, you should honestly consider dropping. I mean, he doesn't have a quarterback straight up, so I mean, might have some speed, might be able to get the long ball, but no quarterback equals nada. And that's really it. T. Higgins was a dud. I guess that was my last one. But T. Higgins, it's the same thing. He doesn't have a quarterback, so I don't know where he goes either. Let's go with some tight ends. Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, both studs. You saw that in the Sunday night game. Chris Collinsworth is so obsessed with them. They were comparing each other, basically comparing the tight ends the whole game as if, I don't know what the heck he was doing. But we get it. They're both great, Chris. Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is a good week this week, but we'll see what he does next week. He has a Q next to his name. So apparently he got a thigh injury during the game. He was limited in practice. We'll see where his status is, but he bounced back. Dallas Goedert had a good game. And then Dallas Goedert was a guy mentioned as a possible tight end pickup a couple weeks ago. Finally, he shows out. Probably the only thing positive from that Eagles offense. Hunter Henry, good game versus the Jets. You kind of knew that was coming for Hunter. We talked about that on the pregame show. Robert Tonyan had a good game. He should have had 2 touchdowns, but he still got his one. And that's pretty much it. I mean, for guys that did well. Heck, even Jason Witten got a touchdown. It was a good day for tight ends. And then a couple duds, I guess, for tight ends. Rob Gronkowski, he was a dud. He did absolutely nothing. And I don't know. Gronk is just he's such an unreliable player for fantasy, in my opinion. And I guess that's really it for any notable tight ends that didn't do well. The Vikings tight ends were duds. The Rams tight ends were duds. And that's about it. Now I guess we'll go. Whoops, my bad. I guess we'll go defense of the week for the week. If there is a defense, we'll have to say the Browns. But, I mean, let's be real. The Browns defense prospered because Carson Wentz is garbage. And that's all I'm going to say because that's the perfect way to end the segment. Let's take a break, guys. We'll come back. We'll finish up the show. We'll talk briefly about the few waiver wire additions that I like this week. And we'll talk about the Thursday games coming right up.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, welcome back, GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Let's wrap up the show here. Waiver wire pickups, guys. It's just getting deader and deader. But we'll try to figure out some guys for you to pick up. I'll give you one at each position for this week, and that's all I'm going to talk about it. Quarterback, I like Taysom Hill. I've said this before, but I'm telling you guys, the reason I like Taysom Hill is two reasons. He gets rushing touches, valuable rushing touches in the end zone, or not in the end zone, in the red zone, which should result in him getting in the end zone with his legs, which is 6 points rather than 4. And he's in Sean Payton's offense, okay? When you got Sean Payton as your coordinator, you're going to be okay, all right? You're going to be okay. So I really like what he's got going forward. I mean, he's got weapons, too, to rely on. So it's not like he's got to have to carry this thing. He just doesn't have to turn the ball over there. And, he had 0 interceptions last game. That was good. So, look, you'll take if Taysom Hill gives you every week what he gave last week versus Atlanta, I think you take that as a backup quarterback at the very least. He should honestly consider him for a starter. But I like him a lot in standard leagues, even PPR leagues. Running backs, the only running back that I could think of, guys, is Gus Edwards. He's still available in a lot of leagues. The reason I'm picking him up is due to the fact that J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram are both down with COVID. So Gus Edwards is going to be your starting running back for the next 2 weeks if you're Baltimore Ravens. So if he's up there in waivers, man, pick him up and start him immediately. It doesn't really matter the opponent. I know they have Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh just got moved. We'll talk. I guess we'll save it for the next show because Pittsburgh just got moved to next game. So it's going to be a tough road for them. We'll see how it goes. But I think the Ravens, look, while they're broken on offense, we all know Gus Edwards is going to get that rock if he's the clear-cut starter. So I take him. He's going to, even if he doesn't get 20 carries, he's definitely going to get goal line touches. So he's an easy starter regardless of the opponent. So scoop him up if you can. Receivers, a couple receivers actually. I like Devontae Parker, but he's not really. He's only available in 30% of leagues. If he's there, scoop him up. He's got the Jets this week. That's an easy start. But the receiver you should really target is Michael Pittman. I think some people have already stashed him on the bench earlier in the year, and then he got hurt. He's still available. He's available in over 60% of leagues. The guy's sitting out there on your waivers, man. Pick him up. I mean, look, he has Phillip Rivers as his quarterback, but the truth is he's getting better every week. He's getting more integrated with the offense. The Colts don't really have a number one wide receiver. I think the days of T.Y. Hilton being that guy are done. I mean, he's 30 years old. T.Y. Hilton really hasn't been good since Andrew Luck left town, which is, sad to say, but it is what it is. But Michael Pittman looks like he has a really good shot at taking over that number one receiver role, and he's going to get the targets going forward. So a guy you probably want to consider adding to your team. And then tight end, I'm going to add, if you need a backup tight end or you need a tight end to stream this week, go with Jordan Akins from the Texans. He's going to be playing the scrappy, bummy, crappy Lions, which we're going to talk about. And tell you what, you take everybody versus the Lions. So I guess that'll lead to our Turkey Day preview. So we'll talk about, just break down the fantasy matchups for these games. So Lions and Texans, the 12 o'clock game, baffles me every year. They got the Lions on. I got no clue why. The Lions stink. But the truth is, it's a tradition. Thanksgiving's about tradition. And the Lions were one of the first teams, second to the Cowboys, of course, but one of the first teams to sign up and sign up for the Thanksgiving time slot to be broadcast. So it's a tradition that they're on every single year. And look, I mean, while the Lions are one of the worst franchises in football, they honestly are one of the most historic franchises in football. Their history dates back to the 50s. And believe it or not, they were actually winning championships. You could look this up, call me crazy, but the Lions were a good team in the 50s. And that's the last time they've been good. But we'll see how this game's going to go. I think Deshaun Watson versus that Lions defense, you take him all the time. I had a lot of people ask me about Duke Johnson. Do I start Duke Johnson? Honestly, Duke Johnson to me, if I had to grade him, he'd probably be a flex play at most. I'm only starting Duke Johnson as a last-minute option just due to volume, but I honestly think there's better options out there, especially if you've been listening to the show. there's definitely better options out there that you should have on your bench. But, look, if you need a last-minute option, I'm not against Duke Johnson due to the fact that the Lions' defense is so bad, but I'm not really a huge fan of Duke the player himself, but we'll see. I think the receivers you start, Will Fuller you start, Brandon Cooks you start. Don't look back on that. Now for the Lions then, look, this is a game. For Matt Patricia, this is your job right here. You got to win this game or else you're going to get fired. You should have got fired after getting shut out by a backup quarterback. But the truth is, you don't win this game on national television, you get embarrassed. I think this is it. So it's going to be a big game for the Lions. I don't know if I would really bet on the Lions because the Lions suck, but this is probably a game you want to roll out of bed and just watch on TV, guys. You don't want to be you don't really want any players on here, any fantasy players, nor do you really want any, I would say, unless you have Deshaun Watson. I don't think you are. Kenny Galladay's out for the Lions too. Now looking at it, Danny Amendola is out for the Lions. So really all they have is T.J. Hawkinson, which is T.J. Hawkinson. If you have him, he's a guaranteed start every week. So I'd start him up. But I don't know where the Lions are going to go from here. this is an important game, but aside from Hawkinson, Watson, I don't see any valuable starts. Even DeAndre Swift, who I would start him if he was healthy, but he's questionable with this game. I'm not starting a player who's questionable going into a Thursday game. That's just me, because we all know that means that injury is not even close to being healed. So that'll affect his performance, and I expect them to rotate. Carry on Johnson, AP, and so honestly, guys, I'm telling you, stay away from this game. And just watch it. If you got Watson, you got Hawkinson, play him, watch it, but try to avoid it as best as possible. Now let's talk about the Dallas game. As I'm just, tell you guys, when I say it's that hour mark on the podcast, I just start getting tired and running out of gas, but we'll finish it up, man. We'll talk about the Cowboys and the Redskin game, or the Washington football team, whatever. I'm still calling them that just because it's ingrained in me, but look, this game, I guess from a fantasy perspective, no, I'm not starting Andy Dalton. As far as the receivers goes, I'm probably going to stay away just due to the fact that I can't really trust them, even though they had a great game last week. Zeke Elliott, probably not, to be honest with you. Same thing with this. I really don't want to play any fantasy players. The only fantasy players that are really viable is Antonio Gibson, just due to the fact that Antonio's been consistent, 5 touchdowns out of the last 4. Even though the Cowboys have improved on the rushing defense, I think they still have some deficiencies. I expect Antonio to get a ton of screens. So PPR, he's definitely a start. And I guess we could start Zeke. I guess, because the truth is, while they're coming on a short week too, Washington's defense is probably tired. So I expect Zeke to. Zeke also has some pretty good games versus Redskins, so I would expect Zeke to be a good starter as well. But I can't think of any other fantasy. You're definitely not starting Alex Smith, Logan Thomas. Give me a break. Terry McLaurin, I guess that'd be the only other fantasy option. He's an obvious start, but we said that before. As far as how the game's going to go, definitely not as important as the first game, but you want to win this game a lot if you're the Cowboys. Now, analyzing this game from a betting perspective, you got to, it's going to sound messed up, but the truth is you got to factor in how, Marcus Paul's death is really going to affect the emotional side of the Cowboys. Do the Cowboys, are they too depressed to where they're just going to be distracted mentally, or are they going to come out inspired and really want to play hard? My guess would be inspired, but I'm not inside the building. I don't know how those players are feeling. I'm sure they're devastated, no doubt about that. But as far as their mental going into the game, who knows? I'm going to just tell you like this, though. John Bostic did knock the crap out of Andy Dalton in the early game, and nobody did crap about it. I'm telling you, there's going to be a little bit different attitude this time around. I think the Cowboys, if they get going on Washington, they're going to start hitting them a little bit harder, a little bit lower, a little bit dirtier. And they're going to want to send a message, say, yeah, you don't disrespect us, because while you guys might have won that one game, you're still a bum, scrappy Washington team. You still you're not better than the Cowboys. You still are, the franchise record versus each other, the Cowboys dominate the Redskins. So the fact that the Redskins got that first win, I mean, the Cowboys players aren't going to be happy with that. They remember that, so I think they're going to want to come out and pound them. Honestly, I have Cowboys defense, and that's just due to the fact my number one defense, I should say, I like the Giants defense this week. But I think the Giants are claimed in a lot of leagues. But if you can't, go Cowboys defense, because I honestly think they're going to come after Alex Smith like they did with Andy Dalton. No, they're not going to hit Alex Smith in the head and be dirty about it, but they're going to attack that knee. I mean, I'm being serious, guys. I mean, when you got a quarterback on one leg, you're going after that leg. That works. And you're gonna force Dwayne Haskins to get in the game. So I expect a ton of blitzes. I expect a ton of looks that are going to force Alex Smith to get the ball out ASAP. That's why I think the Redskins playbook is going to be a lot of screens for Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick, because that's what the Cowboys struggle with, and it's a great counter to a blitz, which is what they're facing a ton of, because everybody knows Alex Smith isn't mobile or can't stretch the field. So we'll see how this game's going to turn out. I really like the Cowboys to win the game, so I'd take them on a money line. I don't think I'll take them on a -3, but -3 ain't bad at the same time. But I do think the Cowboys go out, send a message to the Washington Redskins: you don't play with us. You're a scrummy team. You're still the Washington football team, the Washington nobodies, and you are a bunch of chumps. So that's how I think it's going to go, guys. But that's all I got. Appreciate you listening. Follow the podcast, GSMC_football, GSMC_FF football on Twitter. Follow me, Emmet_Wyman22. Subscribe. Leave a comment to all the networks, the Spotify, the YouTube, the Spreaker network. You can message me and tell me how bad of a job I'm doing. I don't really care, guys. I just want your feedback, because it's not only beneficial to me, it's beneficial to the network. Shout out to the producers, Sarah and Andrew, getting the job done out there, West Coast. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there, man. I appreciate you guys listening to me. And we'll be back Saturday with a little recap and preview for the Sunday slate. So catch me. I'm out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.